duck into the two sessions. Thanks everyone for all your participation in this. Right. Okay, we're good to go. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll hand over to Vanessa.
Thanks, Kevin. Welcome back, everyone. This last afternoon is really a session of consolidation. So I think just now in the plenary, we'll ask for feedback from both the science session and from the outreach session. So is there anyone from the outreach session who'd like to provide the feedback? If not, if the science session is ready so long, we can go with them. Bonita, are you providing a quick overview of what the discussion was?
Yeah, I can do that, Vanessa.
Okay, over to you. I'll give you 15 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to briefly describe what the aims were. It was basically twofold. Firstly, to give participants more information as to how to propose for different IAU scientific meetings. And we had some talks to discuss how that can be done, and that was given by Mariana and Renee. The second aim was for people to pitch ideas for symposia and focus meetings. So I'm just quickly going to share my screen just as a summary. This one. Okay, and let me put it into full screen. All right. So we just started the session, just trying to stress what these timelines are for various submissions, starting with letters of intent that are due by the 15th of September 2022 for the IAU GA 2024. And this is followed by proposals that would be due by the 1st of December next year. So the timelines for organizing these symposia and focus meetings are quite short. So we did want to stress to participants that these proposals and what's involved in organizing these types of proposals is quite involved in terms of the submissions that need to happen. So we do need to work very hard in the next year or so to be able to get these submissions if we are intending of hosting these meetings. We just went through what the type of meetings were, and these were symposia focus meetings. And these are the types of, well, we've asked people to either indicate what their interest would be in hosting symposia or focus meetings. So we focused on these two types of meetings as part of our session, and given them, just highlighted to them what the difference between these types of meetings are. And that was also very nicely said by Renee and during her session. The following slide just contains, I know I haven't added one individual to this particular slide, which is the provisional chairs for meetings. So those people who have indicated expressions of interest for hosting meetings. So in total, I think we got about 12 individuals who have indicated that they would be interested in submitting proposals. Again, most of these individuals came from the South African astronomy community. That is just one thing that we highlighted as part of the session. There were a few contributions from the broader continent, and we obviously need to look at how we can support individuals from the broader continent through what we can deliver through the science subcommittee. Okay, just going to go to the next slide. And then just to briefly go through some of the sessions from this morning. We started off with David Buckley, who spoke a bit about this intelligent observatory and the AFIS flagship project. And I think that with the AFIS flagship project, we really want to look at how, or synergize how this could link up with what Brad spoke about, which I think was 2 days ago, about the flagship for our subcommittee. David also spoke about a meeting that is taking place in November, which is a workshop on the African Integrated Observation System. So how we can make an integrated observatory, not just within the South African context, but in the broader African context. So that is something that we can also look into from the science subcommittee's point of view. Mariana gave us a very nice and a nice detailed discussion of Ethiopia and its hosting of a symposium. This was a symposium with the title Nuclear Activity in Galaxies Across Cosmic Time. And this was a successful symposium. So she gave us some insight as to what made that proposal successful, as well as what were the different things that they needed to do in order to make that proposal successful in terms of hope. And I think one of the things that she did very nicely was, this is one of the outcomes, which is obviously your proceedings from your symposium. And I think that was a very nice presentation that she did on behalf of Ethiopia. And then Renee just walked through some of the selection processes and procedures for IAU proposals for for symposium and focus meetings. And I think over here, what really struck participants was how competitive these proposals can be. And it was nice for Renee to be able to give some insight as to how competitive these proposals are and how we can work together as a community to ensure that there are, or there will be, some successful proposals for the GA 2024. So I think that was a very insightful presentation given by Renee. Yeah, so I think that was from the first session. That was just an information session on how these symposium, how to propose for these symposium, and that was the aim for that session. That was followed by very detailed scientific discussions of people pitching their ideas. One of the points that stood out to me was that these ideas are proposed very much by the South African community. So as one of the chairs for this particular committee, we would want to look at how we can look at promoting or trying to see how more of the African participation can assist in these meetings or work together in bringing about these types of meetings. So I think from our point of view, it's more of how do we facilitate these meetings going forward, and what role do individuals see the science subcommittee meeting playing in the next year or so, while people are busy with the coming up with ideas for proposals. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that, Vanessa.
Thanks, Bonita. Does anyone want to just chip in with one or two things to add? I mean, I think maybe something that I could add was that at the end, everyone who pitched an idea, has been quite open about involving a much broader group of people. So that is an option of getting in touch with them if you're interested in any of these potential ideas for symposia. Right? Anyone else from that meeting want to say anything? No, so we'll keep those ideas going within the science subcommittee, and that committee will try and provide as much support as possible in the year leading up to when the submissions are due. Thanks very much, Bonita, Brad, Khadija, for managing that discussion. I thought it was very exciting.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks, Vanessa.
So now we'll move on to the discussion that took place in the education, outreach and development session. Neeruj, do we have you who's reporting back from there, or Lucia?
No, Carolina will be doing that.
Carolina, brilliant. Over to you, Carolina.
Hi everyone. Let me see if I can share my screen, because we basically captured most of the ideas in a Google document that I'm going to. I don't know if I can share my screen. Let's see. There we go. Right. There we go. So let me just go back to the top of that. You can see it was quite a rich discussion already. So the way we structured our discussion.
Can you zoom in a bit, Carolina?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Does this help?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So the discussion was basically built on themes that had a bit of overlap. So we sort of had a continuous theme. We started off with planetaria, then science centers, then education, then amateur astronomy, then more industry, and then we went with wild ideas, and we got some absolute gems, and then Pan-African collaboration. That sort of was the thematic spectrum that we went through. And so it was noted that Africa is quite unique in that it gives equal importance to education and outreach and research, and that's really the way forward to develop astronomy. So we first discussed the flagship project, and there were some good ideas coming through, for example, connecting planetaria and doing dome casting in facilities where that's possible. One idea that came was to take over the airport and decorate it. And, sometimes big events have like flags on the airport access road. But we were talking a lot about the hubs and the role of the hubs, how we could connect the hubs, and how any structure who wants to be part of the flagship, which is a continent-sized model of the solar system, could be given an orbit and be part of this. And I think there's huge value in that, not just in sort of making a continental scale of the solar system, but also in networking different places who are in different orbits. Right. So if you are in one place, you could see what's happening. Say if you're in Mars, you could see what's happening on Venus, and and so on. There was also mentioned that we need to reach people that we don't usually reach. So you can read this document. I'm going to share it. I don't want to read it all out to you, but I just want to highlight a few things that were, came out quite strongly. So, for example, we need to reach people that who we don't usually reach. So even if it's a temporary structure or whatever, so by bringing astronomy to the people and not having to bring people to the astronomy. It was also mentioned very early on that we need to incorporate best practices for inclusion, for people with disabilities and so on. And there's definitely expertise in the network that in the group that we were to design such guidelines. A cool idea would be to incorporate meteor impact sites across the continent and make them special as well. Then we went on to the planetaria discussion. So there's going to be a lot of overlap between all the different topics. The NAECs, so the National Astronomy Education Coordinators, were mentioned in lots of different contexts and so on. But what was really interesting with the planetaria was that, well, there are really there is a very active network. The African Planetarium Association is very active. There was a discussion about creating content, African-based content or even Southern Hemisphere-based content, but an acknowledgement that that's very expensive. But the value of live shows was also highlighted, which obviously are live, so they don't need full pre-production capital expense. Then we moved on to the Science Center discussion. Oh, sorry, let me just say the Planetarium discussion was led by Lucia, then MJ led the Science Center discussion. And what came out of that was, I think, two main things. One is that science centers across the country, across the region, and even globally are extremely well networked, right? They have a very lively community, professional community. And that science centers are always eager for opportunities to celebrate science in one way or another. So the GA would be a very natural thing to build up to and so on. A cool idea was to mention that they've done is to record questions about science, or in this case astronomy, in the general public, and have an expert respond to those questions either in a booth or something, and then to either broadcast those question and answer conversations or put them on YouTube and so on. So it can be done live, or it could be done not live. There was also mention of mobile roadshows, but the Science Center has a platform where people can find ideas, they can find activities, and they can find collaborators for things around the world. So really a very strong network there that is ready to jump in and celebrate astronomy with us. So that was very positive. Then we moved on to an education and NAEG discussion, and that merged very organically into the schools discussion. So this was really education about schools. And so the NAEGs, this was led by Sally, and she mentioned that, wanting to create a network of the African NAEGs, because Africa has, specific challenges and specific characteristics that a network could really address quite nicely. So, there was other questions that came up, how can we make the content generated in astronomy education reach the departments of education, right? And so then that sort of merged into the schools discussion, which was led by Sivile, who gave us an incredible overview. But before I go to that, it was mentioned that teacher training is very important, and that astronomy is a great context to give the content that follows the curriculum. So for example, if you have certain specific topics in the curriculum, astronomy offers a good context to approach those topics. So you don't have to impose astronomy as a separate curriculum item, which is always quite difficult. There is also really a good mention of naked eye astronomy, especially in rural areas where the skies are very dark. There's a lot that can be done. So when it came to schools discussion, Sivile mentioned that both schools and churches and places of worship are really key in the communities. And so he wanted us to leave a legacy, either materials, resources, programs, etc., that can continue after the GA, and say if they are adopted and owned by communities that interact, or by organizations that interact with the community, such as schools and places of worship, then it can be very impactful. He also mentioned encouraging people coming to South Africa to engage in outreach activities. We need to mention, there was also mentioned that we need to look at different languages, right? So English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic to start with, but also the vernacular when possible. And it's very important also to mention the career options, not just the inspiring aspect of astronomy, but also discuss what careers are possible if you study astronomy. There were some populations that were mentioned for specific focus, such as girls and women in rural areas and in regions that are usually left out, and collaboration with amateur societies, which is the next topic. So that came after that. There was also a mention of high school astronomy clubs, and that also comes in with the partnership with amateur astronomers who are quite, and other amateur associations that are quite happy to mentor, say, school astronomy clubs across the continent. So in terms of language, we also had a really good comment there saying that there's, the linguists and specialists in language who can really help us do not just a translation that may come across as contrived in another language, but actually something that is much more natural and much more flowing in the language. So then we had a discussion about the amateur astronomers. So that was led by Daniel. So he discussed how ASA is interested in enabling the spread and growth of amateur astronomy across Africa. So he wanted also to grow the amateur professional connections, and said that amateurs are often very good communicators. So again, here, connection between science and astronomy clubs in schools
with the amateur astronomy associations. So then we had a conversation about astrotourism that was led by Anthony. And I would just not do it justice. Anthony took us on an incredibly inspiring journey to see the perspective of tourism from before the pandemic, what it has gone through as an industry through the pandemic, and how it is reinventing itself using new platforms, new media, new ways of creating authentic and interesting tourism experiences. And so I think we will share Anthony's slides. I couldn't recommend his slides more. It was everybody was very inspired. So yes, please go and read Anthony's slides. Then our industry discussion was meant to discuss a little bit the industry connection or private sector connection beyond astrotourism. But unfortunately, Anton wasn't able to join us. So then we just moved on to wild ideas discussion. And there we had a really, really great ideas. So there's quite a lot that are here, but I think we discussed, let me just look at my notes here. I'm just gonna mention that competitions, arts and astrophotography. Arts is great for kids. Astrophotography, a photo of the sky above a landmark in a country can make us cover all the landmarks in all the African countries. That could be exhibited at the General Assembly. A Guinness World Record of trying to get as many people, say, watch the moon simultaneously, for example. We could attempt a Guinness World Record. Space Technology Uganda have engaged with refugees in their countries and are documenting the refugees' cultural heritage, because often they come from regions where war is happening, and the cultural heritage is getting lost, and a lot of things are being damaged. So, and we have a lot of refugees, African refugees in South Africa who we could give a voice to. It was a very beautiful intervention there by Elizabeth. Also,
3 minutes, Carolina.
Yes?
About 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. That'll cover it. Then having augmented reality sort of goes with the exhibitions. Having something where you can use your cell phone and something appears was also something that we thought of being able to play with also at the hubs, not just locally. There was a whole discussion about culture, so recording music and into a CD to sell, that the proceeds of which would go back to the community, or having an essay writing competition to see what astronomy means for the youth, or try to include podcast hosts to discuss this, and in particular podcasts that aren't about astronomy or science, but say travel podcasts. And also there was no time to discuss citizen science, but it was mentioned that we shouldn't forget citizen science. Other few ideas, a huge popular talk at the stadium. Filling up the stadium using big screens could be quite good. Using spoken word and poetry in many different languages was also seen as a very powerful way to communicate. There was a mention of a project called Global Science Opera that can be performed by different groups. So this was just a few ideas that were mentioned, but you can see that I think the whole community was really inspired to think, outside the sort of the standard conference that we're used to or were used to. So this was really cool. And then in terms of Pan-African coordination, we want to make sure that all of this is really Pan-African and not biased towards South Africa or something, because this is really the GA of Africa. So we need to make conscious efforts to reach out to countries that don't really have astronomy. And we should also stimulate regional or linguistic regions collaboration. And yeah, that's it.
It sounds like it was 3 hours incredibly well spent.
It was intense, but it was really good.
Any questions from people in the audience, either, or bits that they want to add on either of those sessions before we move on?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. There was one thing that was mentioned that I should bring up, is we didn't also have time to discuss dark sky protection. and the protection of dark skies across Africa. So we also made a note of that, and that's something that we need to discuss in the future.
Brilliant. Comprehensive. I see Michael has just also put a link in there for on dark sky stuff. So
yes, we'll share the recordings, but
yeah, for both sessions, the recordings are there, so you can catch up if you wanted to attend both. Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. I think that really gives us a nice overview of the discussion that has happened in those two parallel sessions. And I'll hand back to Kevin now to wrap us up.
Right, thank you very much to everyone from my side as well. Right, so now we're in the final stretch. In some ways, this is the most important one, because the question is, where do we go to from here? Several people have said to me, you know, this is the start, and it's been said in the discussion as well. This is the start. There's a lot of good ideas, good conversations. So where do we take it from here? And that's where the vision document comes in. So I'm just going to share on the chat there the updated version of the vision document. Oops, sorry, I thought I had it. Okay, if you click on that, it should take you to version 2 of the vision document. I'm going to share my screen now. If you all can get onto that document, we're going to run through very quickly, and then how this is going to work is that we're going to now run through the vision document, and then we're going to have a working session of like 5 or 10 minutes where we would like people to populate the third column of that vision document. Now, just to tell you, sorry, I didn't share the screen.
Do you mean the fourth column, Kevin?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, fourth column, the last column. It's been a long 3 days now. Right. So what you see there is sort of so-called suggested changes. That's just to show you what has been changed from the original document. Now, remember, what we did was we allowed everyone the opportunity to comment on the document. And so what we've done since yesterday is to go through all the comments. Every comment has been taken into account. We've tried to make sure that every comment was taken into account. So if something is not, if one of your ideas, if you feel that it's not been taken into account somewhere in the document, please let me know and we can update this. So the process was, number one, to go through all the comments in the document, and you know, whoever there was a suggestion or a comment or we would implement it. It might not have been implemented in the same part of the document, but you know, if there were additional suggestions for actions, we put it in. If there were additional references, we put in those additional references into the footnotes. And then, you know, there were even new rows that popped up into the document. There were areas where we sort of included clarifications, where people commented on something that may not have been clear. And you'll find a lot of footnotes now that were built from the input that we got from you. The other thing that we did was during the last 3 days, since the start of the forum, we've been keeping notes from the talks, and we use those notes as well to inform this this document. You will remember the important conversation, for example, about building astronomy, engineering, and instrumentation skills. So that was included as a new row in the relevant section. the collaboration with the different communities, for example, and so on. Now, then the third thing was to include from the discussion today, which we were doing while the discussions were going on. So we might not have captured everything, but I think we did a fair job of capturing things. And you'll notice that the science section now has all the ideas for symposia that were proposed. Now, the principle there is that even if these ideas for symposia for the GA 2024 are not actually don't turn out to be a symposium, it's still something where you know, our community feels that there are significant that there is significant interest in these topics. So these topics can be developed as you know, small research communities across the continent. So you know, parts of it still to be populated, and we're going to open it up soon for comments. At the moment, it's only open to view. This is just to keep clean versions of the documents. Then yeah, that's the process we went through. Then I'll just highlight a few things that were added, like schools, establishing a schools program. There was a point that was made strongly. Also about volunteers. A strong point was made about hybrid conferencing and the importance of having virtual attendance possible. A big thing that was added was astrotourism. So just in terms of you know, the experience that people will have coming to the African continent, there are a lot of opportunities for astrotourism across the continent. So we need to try to leverage that. I'm not watching the chat, but if anyone...
Some people are actually just, I've also just noticed, they've said they have issues seeing the updated document. Let's just reshare the link maybe.
Yeah, if you can reshare the link. You guys can see the screen. Anyone on the internet with this link could view. So you should be able to view the document.
Is it perhaps that your edits or suggestions at this point not
yes
accepted?
Yes,
maybe,
yes,
I mean,
yes.
maybe we're not seeing the suggestions on our side.
Oh, you're not seeing the suggestions.
It's just an idea of why we maybe not seeing the same thing.
If anyone has any ideas as to why we're not seeing, I don't know how. So can someone just say, so you're seeing the document, but just not the suggestions?
Yes.
If you look at my screen, so you don't see all these suggestions in
No,
in the
none
document.
of those.
The highlights don't show up.
The highlights don't show up.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
can
my
someone
side-
quickly
By my
check?
side, I can see the suggestion here on my side.
So some can see the suggestion.
Okay.
Yes, I saw it.
Okay, can I ask everyone to quickly check under science, right? Under science, do you see, even those that don't see the suggestions, do you see the table populated?
No.
No, it's empty.
No.
We're not seeing any of the changes you made.
Okay,
but I
okay.
can see
Then
it,
let me ask everyone to just look at my screen that I'm sharing. I'll talk you through this, and then I'll accept all the changes, and then you'll see everything on the document itself.
What?
Right. So the other points to highlight, I'm just run through quickly any of the new big ones. About languages, we included a point about languages and about multilingual participation in the GA. Then in terms of funding, there was a suggestion of high-profile individuals that's been included. and for the legacy, transforming the way meetings are done. And of course, the flagships and the astronomy hubs. So, oh, okay, no, but I don't want to. I don't want to delay too much. I think I've basically just pointed out some of the highlights. So let me do this. I'm gonna change the sharing settings, and I'm gonna ask everyone to please don't add. Don't change too many things on the document, but I've changed this to everyone can comment now. So if you have a look at the document, does that change anything? Can you see my suggestions?
Yes, there's some change. Yes.
Okay, so can everyone see my suggestions as well?
Yes, we can see now.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Okay, great. Right. So now let's get into the meat of it. It's this fourth column. Who is responsible for these actions? Now that you all can see my suggestions, you can go through and you can see the things that have been added. If there was something that you had commented on or made suggestions in a particular section, just have a look at that section, see that I've captured it in my suggested changes. You don't have to accept the suggested changes, but you can add a comment if something is not completely there, and then I'll go through and accept all the changes at the end. But very importantly, we've added the word suggested here. If you can suggest who could be responsible for these actions, that would be a huge help. So you can either highlight it and suggest in a comment, or you can just come into this last comment column there, and then add an organization or an individual that you think should be in charge of that. It would be great if you volunteer yourself or your organization. But I'd like to now give it over to you, and let's have let's say a 10 minutes. Is 10 minutes okay? Any objection? Let's have 10 minutes. You can jump to the parts that interest you. Not everyone is interested in everything, but we need a 10-minute working session so that we can populate this last column. So please go ahead. If anyone's having trouble with access, just shout out or send me a message and we'll try and resolve that. But for the next 10 minutes until 14:20, let's just work on this, and then we'll have at least something at the end where we can follow up on in terms of making these actions happen. Sorry, I'm only seeing the comments now, but yeah, if there's anyone still having a problem seeing the suggested changes, just send me a message. This is great. We've got about 60 people on the document. It's the biggest Google document I've ever worked on. I'm going to stop sharing. Let everyone work in peace. If you have any questions that you see in the document and you want to quickly ask about it, feel free to unmute and just ask about it.
Let me just register for you. Yes.
Kevin, I can't see the document. Where can I access it?
I'll just paste the link again.
Oh, okay.
Click on that, Rosani. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I didn't go through all of it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Just to respond to the question, yes, there will be room for suggestions to the document even after this conference. Version 2 will be what we put out at the end of this conference as one of the outputs, and then it just continues, because things change. If something new comes up, if someone comes up with a great idea, we're not going to leave it out of the document. We definitely will keep inviting more input. So the plan is that at the end of this, we'll accept all the changes, and then we'll have a clean document that will be put on the website, put online, shared wherever, and then that'll be sort of version 2. And then that version 2 will then be open for more comments, and then you can start populating your comments again. Should we mark the suggested names different from putting in our own names? No, not necessarily. You can suggest yourself, or you can suggest someone else. Let's say it's all suggestions. So don't feel too bad if you see your name there. It's just a suggestion. We'll follow up with you, and if you're able to do that particular task, then great. If not, we'll find others. So feel free to suggest many people for a particular task. Shall I add to the suggested focus meeting on data visualization in the science table? A suggested focus meeting. I'll let Vanessa answer that.
Yes, Lucia, please add it in as an extra row.
Okay, please keep on adding. I see there's still some empty blocks. So anywhere that you might have ideas, remember, these are suggestions. You can suggest who should be responsible for that, or who could be responsible for that. Feel free to add in comments if you want to explain your suggestions or anything like that. Sumaya, can you not add comments?
Yes, when I share my modification, not accepted.
Well, it's only for comments at the moment, so you can add comments, but it wouldn't be accepted until we sort of start finalizing the document. So as long as your comment is in, then that's all we're looking for now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I see that NASA asks, could we add the suggestions tomorrow after reviewing all the document? Yes, I think let's try to add as much as possible now. Let's see where we are, and then we can take a decision after this 10-minute working session in terms of deadlines. Okay, thanks for coming, Renee. Yeah, she said she has to leave. You can say in the chat if there are other people that would like to have more time to add to populate that fourth column. You're free to say in the chat so we sort of get an idea. And I do recognize that there are, there are many people who met each other for the first time at this forum. So you may not know everyone really well yet, but let's see what we can do. Just from people you've met, talks you've heard, let's see what suggestions you can make in terms of responsible people. Right, we've got 1 more minute from the 10-minute allocated. Let's try and fill as many of those empty blocks as possible. I think a lot of the blocks towards the end would fall in the hands of the National Organizing Committee. But there are others that I think we can all play a role.
Sorry, Kevin, I'm just rejoining from a different meeting. Are you referring to the Astronomy 2024 document?
Yeah, I'll just share the link to the new document, James. You might have seen the previous one. If you click on that document, that's you should have comment access. So we're trying to populate the responsible persons, make suggestions for responsible persons in the fourth column of that document.
Okay, cool.
Would anyone like another minute? If you're busy writing something, maybe round up and then we can come back to the discussion. Right. So let's open it up. How was that exercise? You do you feel that you'd like more time? Shall we extend this to I don't know, early next week or so, or sometime next week, for people to have a closer look at it, add comments, and then round it up at the end of next week, maybe, or an extra day? How do people feel? Feel free to speak. Oh, Susan's Google Doc has crashed. I hope it's not the entire Google Doc, Susan. No, mine is still alive. Okay, I get one yes, a bit more time. Anyone else would like a bit more time?
Yeah, I think maybe if it is.
Sorry, Prosperi?
Yeah, if it is possible to leave it open up to Tuesday next week.
Okay. Yeah, I see Narusha, Egwim, bit more time. Oh, Vanessa was expression of interest to help, not responsible. It's suggestions for responsible. I think help is also responsible. I think it's, yeah, we'll interpret everything as happy to help, and the people we suggest who are happy to help. Okay, so the only feedback we've had so far is that we extend. No one feels that we should close it now, right? Okay. Okay. So I think we're good to do that. Let's extend the time. I'm really glad that that we got so many things populated now, because it's also it gives us a starting point, and it gives the people who have been named an opportunity to go and write someone else's name if you don't want to be responsible for that one. So let's do that. Let's leave it open until what shall we say, middle of next week. Let's give it until Wednesday next week, because if we close the comments on Wednesday next week, then by Friday next week we can circulate sort of a solid version 2 of the document, or probably version 3 by then, maybe, and that will that will then be a clean document open. I see one thumbs up, other thumbs ups or yeses. I'm proposing Wednesday next week. We're open for comments until Wednesday next week. Close it Wednesday night, and then Thursday, Friday we try and consolidate. Okay, cool. So we try and get this document out by the end of next week. Right. So you all have until Wednesday next week to continue commenting. The link was also sent in an email to all the participants. So with that, let me just open up. Are there any questions, any technical questions about the document, or anything unclear of what needs to be done?
Maybe just to reiterate what you already said, Kevin, there'll always be a version of the document that will be open for some kind of comment and input. We would just like to have this version of the document as a sort of an outcome from this forum on astronomy in Africa.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Well said. Yeah, I think you know, we want to close this at some point soon after the meeting. Just one comment to explain what is requested in the document. The main thing that we need is to well, let's say 3 things. One is to go through the document, and you should be able to view my suggested changes now. My suggested changes are all based on the many comments that we had over the last 3 days of meeting. If any of the changes don't reflect what you had intended or what you meant, you are free to get in touch with me, or you can add a comment there that that says what more you would like to see under that point. So that's the first point, is just to go through the changes and see that your comments have been incorporated. Number 2 is to populate the last column with suggested responsible people. And so that's, you know, either you volunteer to take on one of those tasks or you suggest someone. And then number 3 is just if there's anything that we've missed out that we didn't manage to capture during the meeting that you've captured in your notes or that you've taken away, you can add those in as comments or suggestions, and we'll consolidate that. And yes, Yasre, I will send all that in an email. So yeah, 3 things: check that your comments have been incorporated, fill in the 4th column, the last column, and anything else that might need to be added. Okay, with that, thank you very much, and I'll hand over back to Vanessa to close.
Okay, so I think we're pretty much ready to round the meeting up, but I'd like to give this opportunity to people again, as we said this morning, just to, you know, the floor is yours, right? Is there any other input you'd like to make, or comments you'd like to make, or maybe a suggestion for how we run a similar session, either alongside the African Astronomical Society meeting in March or next year? So for a couple of minutes now, the floor is yours. Any reflections or things are welcome. Sarah, will you start us off?
Hi, thank you. I just had a query about the SOCs for all the different symposia suggestions. Because they have to be very international, they're looking for wide geographic distribution. Does that mean we can kind of play about with who is the actual chair? Because if there's only 6 symposia being allowed for the GA, and 1 or 2 are going to be hosted by South Africans, does that mean we have a bit of like leeway there?
Yes, absolutely. And I think Bonita can come in here if she needs to. But I mean, you know, this is an idea for a science topic, and it doesn't have to be binding, right? At the end of the day, you may decide this is an international proposal that, you know, you guys are forming a local representation, but that is actually going to be submitted by, you know, a chair from Spain or, you know, South America or wherever. So, you know, we recognize that these ideas may change. Does that answer the question? Bonita, I don't know if you're there and you want to add anything. Sarah, if you said anything, you muted again.
That's a good answer. Thank you. Thanks, Vanessa.
Anybody else willing to say something last minute on a Friday? I think everybody's been overwhelmed by the size of the comments in the Google Doc. Well, maybe, yes, Patricia, please go ahead.
Only that there's been lots of thanks to you and Kevin on the chat, but somebody ought to say it verbally. It's obviously been a huge amount of effort for the 2 of you and the other people involved in the organization. Thank you very, very much for devoting so much time and effort and bringing people together in this way. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. I think it's a large number of people actually in the background working, you know, the FS team and the organizing committee. So maybe the team from the African Astronomical Society and the National Organizing Committee can quickly switch on their videos. In fact, should everyone switch on their video so we can take a conference picture? So if you are there and not yet asleep, put your glass of wine to the side, put your videos on, and we can do a couple of screen grabs. That will be wonderful.
Okay, let me use my phone. My camera on my laptop isn't very clear.
Now this is like wedding photos because you must just keep smiling. Okay, we don't know when people are taking these screen grabs. Okay, I think I've got everyone. Did Kevin? Did you get a few?
Not really. I tried, but
Me
the
again,
screen is
using
not
my
big
phone
enough. Anyway, you guys can take pictures as well. If anyone gets a good screenshot, please share it with us.
Okay. Anyone else want to say a couple of final words or a thank you? I can maybe ask someone from the African Astronomical Society. Charles, are you around?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just don't know if I'm the only one. If there's anyone else from AFIS, they can also say something. Yeah, I mean, coming into this meeting, we didn't know much of what to expect, and I think that the discussions were very rich, and everyone contributed significantly. And now we have got some sort of direction, even in our planning, even as AFIS, to say what we can contribute towards making the GA a success, and also pushing the agenda of the legacy of AFIS also beyond 2024. So yeah, we will study all the documents that are coming out of this meeting and see in what ways we can contribute and just ensure that we of course make our community proud, the whole astronomy community on the continent, and also that we implement the mandate that we've been given, which is to carry out the vision of the community. Yeah, so thank you, Kevin and Vedesta again, and also to everyone. This was really a great meeting, and yeah.
Thank you, Charles. It certainly wouldn't have been possible without the huge support of the African Astronomical Society. So anyway, I think with that, if there's no more final words from anyone, it's time for a weekend. And I want to say from my own perspective, I'm very privileged to have met you all this week. It's been a really enriching experience, and I look forward to many more of these kinds of similar meetings over the next couple of years as we prepare for the GA. Thanks, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
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 Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So many people are co-hosts that we can't actually end the meeting because it keeps jumping to the next person. So you all will have to leave slowly. Otherwise, it's going to continue streaming, I think. So thank you very much, everyone. Or you can unmute and just say goodbye, everyone. But thank you so much. Have a good weekend. And I'll send an email with the final instructions. Okay.
See you very soon. I have to
Bye-bye.
leave now. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.